liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We've asked Commissioner Becky Wright to begin tonight with a thought or prayer.
Thank you, Chair. Just with the fact that we celebrated Earth Day this past week, I saw a number of quotes and pictures and things that inspired me, and one of them said, "Remember, we are stewards first, not just owners of this earth." And I thought that was really applicable to what we do on the Planning Commission. Is we look forward and we are stewards of this land and of this city, and hopefully we can keep that in mind as we make these decisions. And I'll say a quick prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to meet together as Planning Commission and residents of this city. We're thankful for this opportunity to live in such a great city and have the blessings and opportunities of living here. We pray that thy Spirit will be here, that we will be impartial, and that we will be fair, and that we will think ahead to the future, that we will remember that we are stewards, and that we will be able to be guided in the right direction. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Wright. The first matter on the agenda tonight is a review of two sets of minutes. The first review that we'll do is the minutes from the March 23rd, 2016 City Council Planning Commission Joint Work Session. We'll go through these page by page. If any of you have any comments on those minutes, just let me know. So we'll start with page 1. Page 2. I have a very slight comment, and again, it's more stylistic than anything else, but I think it would make it clearer. On line 27, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Corey, but it says here, Mr. Snyder responded the general plan could be amended. I think perhaps better language would be Mr. Snyder suggested that the general plan could be amended. Are you okay with that change? And then on the next line, line 28, Councilwoman Fillmore stated that should be the expedited action. I think Councilwoman Fillmore stated that this should be an expedited action, maybe just adding the word this. Prior to that, she's just talking about the west side, putting a zoning change in place regarding the heavy industrial. Does that change make sense? Any?
I'm surprised I didn't see my three-legged stool comment from when I referenced Corey in the minutes there.
Do you want to add it in?
No, it's fine.
Anything else on page 2? Page 3? Page 4?
We weren't there for the rest of that, right?
No, and we weren't here for these last few pages. And page 5. Chair will entertain a motion.
Go ahead, Becky. Oh, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for that work session meeting held on March 23rd, 2016, as amended.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next set of minutes that we need to review tonight are the minutes from the April 13th, 2016 Planning Commission meeting. And again, we'll go through these page by page, and if you have comments, please bring them to the chair's attention. Page 1.
I've got one for page 1. I might be fuzzy, but on line 23, staff present Bruce Cox. I don't think Bruce Cox was actually here. Brandon Topance was here, right? So.
Anything else on page 1?
No, that's it.
Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5.
I've got one thing for page 5.
Go ahead.
Starting on line 19, where it references what felt like a long, whatever that was.
It was a soliloquy. It
Yeah,
was very nice.
right, thank you. Commissioner Daly said Main Street is not the true main road in Centerville. I think I want to make that reflect a little bit more. I think my exact words were something like, Commissioner Daly, I think my exact words were, some have said that Main Street is not the true main road in Centerville, and I think I want to make that reflect a little bit more of that aspect of, not necessarily that I'm saying that it's not the true main road, but some have said. So maybe we could just add in there, Commissioner Daly said, some residents feel Main Street is not the true main road in Centerville. How about that?
Okay. I have a couple of comments as well. On line 1, I believe there should be an apostrophe after committees. The original committee's work, make it possessive, plural possessive. And on line 12, I would request that we put the word "that" in before the word "commission." Requested that commission members submit all public comment. And on line 26, I believe that we need a comma after the word "transitional." Anything else on page 5? Page 6.
I just have a couple. On line 1, Commissioner Wright said Main Street can be whatever they make it. I think what I was trying to convey there more was, I think I asked the commission to consider what our Main Street, what it means to Centerville as a whole. So I don't know necessarily if I want to say whatever they can make it. Maybe we could say something like Commissioner Wright said, Main Street signifies the heart of our city, or something like that. I can't remember my exact words. I mean, if anyone else has a suggestion, I kind of posed the question that we would consider what is the heart of our city. And then down on line 8, instead of "she does not share the concern with liability," because I am concerned about liability, but maybe it could say, "she does not believe elements are a liability concern, but rather that these elements create a safety barrier from traffic for those pedestrians on the sidewalk."
Kathy, is that clear? Anything else, Commissioner?
Thanks.
Any other comments to page 6? I have a few. Down on line 29, I think where it says the commission agreed to have a representative from UDOT come and present their standards. It's a little unclear whether it's the representative standards or UDOT standards, so I would change the word "there" to UDOT's with an apostrophe S. On line 31, I would remove the word "to" and would put "also" after the word "would" on line 32. So it would read, Wasatch Regional Council on complete street designs would also be helpful. And lastly, on line 38, where it says "to that regard," I would put it in that regard. Change the word "to" "in." Any other comments to page 6? Page 7. I would like to make a clarification on line 5. It says, Chair Hershey made a motion to continue this item, including the public hearing, to a future Planning Commission meeting. And I think we had at that point a discussion of the work session being that we wanted to move that next meeting until after we'd held a work session. So I'd like to add these words after the word "meeting" on line 5, to be held after a work session involving Wasatch Waterfront Regional Council and UDOT, or WR, whatever, WFRC and UDOT. And then line 18, Corey, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm wondering if we could add the words, he suggested that it may be better to require impact fees on line 18. Just
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Is that okay? Any other changes to page 7? Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended by the comments given in this meeting.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded that we approve planning commission meeting minutes from April 13, 2016. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item of business tonight is a public hearing. It involves the, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, row letter? Yes. Okay, thank you. The row letter Sunrise Lot split. This is a request for, actually 2 requests. The first is a zone map amendment from AL to RL, the east parcel only, which is composed of 0.291 acres. And request number 2 is pending actual rezone approval, small subdivision waiver for lot split into 2 lots. And this property is located at 560 South, 400 West. And this application was initiated by James Roletter, who is also the property owner and applicant. Turn time over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brandon Topance was the staff member assigned to this project. He asked to be excused. His daughter's birthday is tonight, so I'm substituting for him. So hopefully I'm at least somewhat up to speed on what he was trying to convey. I think the approach that when I read his report, the approach is that somebody would like to use their property and subdivide. And often the conceptual plan is the kind of the starting basis point. And then in the conceptual plan, you start identifying the various issues that might be associated with it. And part of this review is that there is a rezone component to the project. So I think his approach was to start with a conceptual subdivision, even though you often look at rezones first before you do subdivisions, but at least the subdivision conceptual plan can identify all the issues. And then he moved to the second half to try to address the rezone. Just in brief, for the introduction of the project, I pulled up the zoning map. This is the property, subject property, this large agricultural piece. It has a home and an outbuilding associated with it. From my understanding, Mr. Roletter also does raise some chickens, and my understanding sells them, at least to those who are interested. I don't think it's a large operation, but something to that effect. What he would like to do is take the front piece area, this excess in front of the home, and divide some of that property off to allow the construction of another single-family home. As you well know, zoning uses canals, center lines of streets, property lines, and so forth, and we don't have this situation here. So, pun intended, we have a chicken and an egg, situation here with the project. He'd like to keep the agricultural zoning for the major portion of the property, but would like to divide off a lot, and instead of doing a half-acre lot, he would like to do what the RL zone would be is in the neighborhood. RL zone is a quarter-acre lot. It's a gross density, but it's basically a quarter-acre zoning, and so that's what he'd like to do, and came to the city and proposed the opportunity to do that. All in all, I think Brandon's report identifies the issues, but it's generally feasible to do this. The property's large enough to leave some of it in the agricultural zone, but depending on where that hard property line would occur, he would like to drop below the half acre and draw the zone line at that point. And so the feasibility and the spatial ability is there. It comes down to how do we balance getting a hard property line to put a zone into. One of the things that I had asked Brandon to address to some degree, I think it's reflected in his suggested motion on the rezone part, is that we're not trying to say that we'll give you this zone if you do specifically X, Y, and Z. What we're trying to propose is if this rezone is feasible to go through, whatever lots are in the agricultural zone, you've got to meet the agricultural sizes. Whatever lots end up, whether it's 1 or 2, whatever lots end up in the RL zone have to meet the RL zone requirements. Then the property line would be recorded, and now we have a hard property line to follow to rezone to the RL. So we're not trying to, even though they're very much related to each other, we're not trying to say, if you do it only this way, you get this rezone. What we're trying to say is, if it's feasible to subdivide and the city is okay with rezoning a portion of the property, whatever portion lies within the RL zone meets the RL, whatever portion of the AL, and that's where we kind of get this chicken and the egg. How do we get there? And so I think Brandon's report is just saying, in a conceptual level, it's there. He's recommending, I think, approval to the conceptual, but this is also a small subdivision waiver. So the subdivision technically does not move on to any other processes. Normally, other larger subdivisions would come back to the commission for further review and then on to the council. This is a small subdivision where this body is the body that approves it. So I think you have to keep these kind of two thoughts in mind. You're looking at a rezone, and we know that that line will land somewhere to allow one lot to enter into the RL zoning. But are you comfortable making a decision on the subdivision yet, pending the outcome of whether the council is comfortable with the rezone request? I think this application's fairly disciplined. It's fairly thorough. It's one of to give the star of the night to somebody, this application is probably one of the most thorough applications that we receive. But I think you just have to decide, do you feel the subdivision is appropriate, and are you okay with sending on a recommendation to rezone a portion of the property pending that we ultimately have a hard property line to run the zone on? So I think it's your call. Brandon recommended, I think, approval of both. Another option is you could say, yeah, I think it's feasible, but I'd like to have the council render an opinion on the rezone, and then you come back to a second meeting and we'll decide if the small subdivision waiver can be approved, or you can condition it and see what happens. So it's up to you, but I think overall the recommendation is in the affirmative to approve both decisions.
Thank you, Corey. I had that very question come to my mind: is it appropriate to do a conditional lot split, knowing that if the zone is not changed, or that zone change is not approved by the council, then that decision is invalid?
Correct.
However, if the council does approve the zone change, then the application for the lot split would be valid and would not require another meeting or another hearing before this body. Is that the way?
And I think the
works?
way it's proposed is that a condition of the lot split is that you get the rezone. So it's not necessarily invalid, it will just never vest because the condition is not met.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
But also, Mr. Chair, if you recognize the way we wrote the second item report, which involves a small subdivision, we were also, in that case, staff wasn't comfortable yet recommending a decision to you. So I think you have both options to decide which one you're comfortable with.
The other thing that you mentioned in your report just now, Corey, is the fact that the lot line appears to be a little bit fuzzy right now. But I mean, it's very specific as to the amount of square feet and everything else in there.
Yeah, I think their proposal is very specific. The issue is there's room to do more than one lot too. So the question becomes to them is how much area do they want to actually divide? I think they're showing you how much area, which would result into one lot, which then would qualify for a small subdivision, but if they chose to go a different direction, it would then bump it to the next subdivision level.
But if we approve the lot split now, and the RL zone change is made, that pretty much locks it in.
It does.
They would have to come back with another application
Correct.
to do something on the remaining.
It would. The only thing I'm trying to delicately balance is there's a line between where we're giving a rezone based on a certain parameter, and that's the only parameter that rezone's tied to. So I'm trying to balance the idea of this chicken, this egg, that the rezone is independent of the subdivision, even though that we know the subdivision's likely going to be just the one lot. So we don't get into a contract zone situation, because we've had that discussion in the recent past. Where are we rezoning, and we're saying to the developer the rezone is contingent only on this set of plans. And I'm trying to dance that line between where whatever zone it ends up in, you're eligible for whatever that zone allows. And if it's one lot and meets the lot split, great. But if you want to change that and you could go to 2 lots, that line can move.
But they're only asking for a rezone on 0.29 acres.
Right.
So there's not enough room in 0.29 acres.
Right. And I know it's a technicality. I'm just trying to dance the line between the rezone is tied ultimately and specifically to only this approval, even though we know that this lot split is only a one lot anyway. So it's that, I'm just trying to dance that legal line between a rezone request versus a subdivision and trying to keep those two decisions independent of each other.
Gotcha. Other comments or questions for staff? We'd invite the applicant to come forward if you'd like to and answer any questions that might have been raised by staff's report or by the commissioners. And please state your name and address for the record.
James C. Roletter. I live at the 560 South, 400 West, Centerville.
Thank you for being here.
Sure, thank you.
Any comments to the staff report or anything that's been said here tonight so far?
No, I think it's done well. I mean, if the what I've heard is pretty much what I've asked for. I do have a question on. Let's see, it'd be page 2 of the agenda. If the zoning is approved and the lot split is and the small subdivision waiver is granted, front side yard on that little boxed in area towards the bottom says front side yard's 20 feet, east 20 feet. So what are the setbacks on a house that's a corner? Is it 20 and 25?
It is both. You'll have a front street. So let's say you decide to pick 400 West as your main front yard street. That would be 25.
Okay.
And then Rollins Circle would be 20.
Okay.
But you can reverse it.
It doesn't have to be the east 20.
Right. You could
Okay.
pick Rollins Circle to be the 25 and have 400 West be the 20.
Okay. That was the only question I had on the
Okay, thank you.
agenda.
Do the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. This matter has been scheduled for a public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to come and speak to this question tonight, you're welcome to do so. You can come to either side, state your name for the record, and give us your comments. Seeing no one coming forward, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any further questions for staff?
I have one minor, and this is a very technical thing. On the top of page 2 of the staff report, subdivision waiver section 15-2-106, I think it's actually 107. I referenced the big blue book.
Oh, yeah, it is
And,
107.
You brought the big blue book.
Right.
Good job, I'm
It is
impressed.
107.
So I don't know if that matters or not, but it is 107.
Yeah, it just would matter in your findings, if that's quoted wrong. in
Well,
your
and it does say
findings.
107 in the paragraph.
It does say it in the paragraph, but the header
So it
is,
just needs that right there, yeah.
And Corey, is it, and Brandon mentions this in the staff report, but can you elaborate any further on what is surrounding this property as far as zones? Do we have RL and ag zones in the area?
Yeah, I think Blandon's report talks about that the general plan allows a variety of type of zoning, but if we come back out, you see the agricultural is the green, and this is actually a little bit different than the colors east of it. This is supposed to be more of an orange, which is a residential medium. So the rezone is next to this residential medium. The RL is to the east and a little bit further north. The RM is Shayla Park over here. You have commercial high, which is the lighter red, and commercial very high, which is the darker red. So it is
So we don't have any RL abutting this proposed lot?
correct.
It'd be an island there.
Correct. One of the things you could consider is the RM zone and say it should be an RM zone. Just know that in an RM zone, single-family homes are conditional uses, not permitted uses, which is an oddity of the residential medium zone.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. Any other comments or questions?
Well, despite the fact that if we did approve the rezone, it would be an island, those are all obviously agricultural next to it, but a lot of them are single-family residences. So I don't think it's a huge departure from the surrounding area, even though that the zone may not, it may seem like it's an island. It's actually very congruent with what's surrounding, I believe.
I feel like it's harmonious as well.
Right.
Yeah, the green agriculture has the ability to move both directions, the RL or the RM. Currently, it's single-family agriculture. It
Yeah.
could very well end up doing some more divisions and be single-family, just residential, or if the circumstances are right, they could ask for the RM zoning.
Thank you. Well, I would like to make a motion.
Wait.
I just had one comment. Since this isn't a lot or a parcel that's requesting the rezone, if the commission's inclined to forward a positive recommendation on the rezone, I would like to add one more condition that the applicant shall provide the city with a legal description of the area to be rezoned prior to this matter going to the city council. We have to put the rezone in ordinance form, and so we'll have to know exactly the size and legal description of that rezone area.
So that would be on the
So additional condition number 2 on the rezone.
rezone, the map amendment. Gotcha.
It would just transfer the survey language into a meets and bounds prior to the meeting.
Okay. Well, I will make a motion to, for the Planning Commission to approve the small subdivision waiver lot split for the Row Letter Sunrise Lot subdivision located at 560 South, 400 West, with conditions 1 through 7 in the staff report and suggested reasons for actions A through E of the staff report.
I'll second that.
Further comment or discussion? Debate?
Sorry, am I looking at the wrong one?
So you need to be on page,
on page
This is on
6.
page 3.
Okay.
And one of those conditions, just by explanation, is that it is subject to city council approval of the amendment, which we'll come to next. Any other comments or discussion on the motion? Let's go ahead with roll call vote on that then. Commissioner Wright?
Aye.
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 Thank you. And moving to the rezone itself, I would like to make a motion for the Planning Commission to accept the zone map amendment for the east lot of the Roletter Sunrise subdivision located at 560 South, 400 West, from agricultural low to residential low, and to recommend approval to the City Council with conditions 1 and the new condition number 2. Did you get that okay, Kathy? Relating to the legal description and the suggested reasons for action A through C of the staff report.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion or debate? Not. Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
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 It is adopted. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Mr. Chair, may I address the applicant?
Pardon me?
May I address the applicant?
Yes.
If you call our office tomorrow, Brandon can guide you through what the next steps are to get to the council agenda.
Thank you for being here.
Depends on when they get there.
Next matter on the agenda is also scheduled for a public hearing. This involves the Cove at Dual Creek Estates, 362 South, 400 East. The applicant is Jacob Williams. It's a consideration of a proposed small subdivision waiver lot split on property located at 362 South, 400 East for the purpose of creating 3 residential building lots, which consist of 2 flag lots and 1 street frontage lot. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you indicated, there's a request for a small subdivision waiver, and this includes the opportunity to look at whether you would approve a flag lot style development. Just kind of stepping back, the city for a long time had withdrawn the flag lot ordinance, and there was a good almost over a decade, I think, that the city did not have flag lot ordinance in place. It had repealed it. Several years ago, the city wanted to look at the opportunity of infill type development. And infill is a strategy where you can take underutilized properties or vacant properties that don't fit traditional abilities to subdivide and allow further opportunity for future development. And there's multiple strategies to doing that. One of them is the flag lot opportunity. The concept of the flag lot is that you might have a home, or in this case you have a vacant lot, a couple of vacant lots, but you can have a home with a large, deep backyard area, and if there's enough space, you could fill in that underutilized land with another home. The city reinstituted the flag lot, but rather than just let that happen at any point in time, they said that our flag lot ordinance is a last resort opportunity. So this is the concept that you can't just go to large vacant pieces of ground and fill them in with a bunch of different flag lots as well as the traditional lots that front a street. There's criteria associated with a flag lot, and it broadens the small subdivision waiver opportunity from just 2 lots. A flag style will let you have, theoretically, probably the max is 4. It just basically says you can have no more than 2 flags. As soon as you have the ability to do more flags than 2, you start introducing that, hey, wait a minute, streets can happen, maybe this shouldn't occur. So the flag lot ordinance says you can have up to 2 flags. If this is indeed a last resort situation to handle underutilized pieces of property or tracts that can't conventionally subdivide. But the difference is that when you do a flag lot, you have to plat. You can't just do it through a meets and bounds description like the small lot does. And the reason being is because you're establishing a stem, and that has some joint access, and it's cleaner and clearer to everybody when they have a plat, what they purchased, what they own, and what are the conditions, because you can place notes on the plat to say this is a joint easement area for access, so forth and so on. So they have to plat if this were to go forward with a traditional linen recorded plat. The subject property is this area right here. This is our Google Earth area. You have a undeveloped area here, and in the back is tucked back, fairly large. Dual Creek comes through this area, in this channel area, and they'd like to establish a home lot here on the south portion of the fronting area. So this would be a traditional lot on a street with 60 feet of frontage. And then they'd like to create a stem down the north side or the south side of this existing home and put a flag on the south side of that rear area and on the north side in this area. And so you'd have the two flags with the one street lot. Part of the setup to this is the street frontage. They need an additional foot to get to the 85 feet. You have to have a 60-foot wide street lot and a 25-foot wide stem. They need 1 foot of property to get to that length along the street. They're in negotiation, and it looks like tentatively they can do a lot line adjustment with this property and still meet every zoning requirement. Another issue is these buildings here and potentially part of this home have been built onto this back property. And so they'd like to do a lot line adjustment for that home and this large garage and add some property into this home site to remove those buildings from crossing over property lines. That would leave the rest of the remaining property. And in the staff report, staff went through the dimensions. We look at it, and conceptually, it can meet all of the parameters to qualify for a flag lot. So I'm trying to come up with a plat here. My toolbar won't go away. So I don't know if you can see this very well. I need to go because I can't see it very well. Counterclockwise. Yeah, it doesn't come in really well. This is the existing home to the north, and this is the outbuildings that cross over the property line. So you'd have a lot here, basically over by the Dual Creek drainage. You'd have a lot south of it, and then you'd have a street lot with the shaded area being the stem. We call out some parameters that have to be adjusted in order to make this work. The stem has to be associated with a flag and still meet the build area requirements. It likely is going to be able to. We just have to reorient where the dedication of lot lines occur. We bring up that we just need to make sure these two back lots meet the minimum square footage, which right now they do, but adjusting these things around, we just need to make sure that that there's enough area in the back to have two flags. There's a minimum area you have to have for the two flags. All the calculations show that it's feasible to do that. And so we think from a subdivision layout with the lot line adjustments, it's as far as zoning and area, it's possible to do two flags. When we think of the small subdivision waiver, the idea, is this the last resort subdivision? From staff's perspective, we don't have the ability to assemble other properties and put in a public street. And if you tried to put in a public street here, like a cul-de-sac, it would eat up too much ground just for a longer cul-de-sac area. So you would lose the ability to use the back area for lots. So we think it qualifies for the parameters of a small subdivision waiver. I think the largest and critical issue, and is why I recommended it be split out into two motions. One, the first motion is does it meet the small subdivision waiver criteria? And that's a finding you have to make. It's up to the Planning Commission to say, yes, we don't see any other way to use this property, and will it eventually become nuisance and abandoned or underutilized when it should be, opportunity should be a flag lot. So that's one decision you have to make is does it qualify for that? The second decision is are you ready to approve the small subdivision parameter of it? And that's where staff held back and said we need to answer some questions. There's a city engineer. This is a major, from our perspective, it's not a major floodway, but it's a major drainage channel. And so we need to make sure that we work with the county and get their viewpoint on that drainage. Anything within 100 feet of a drainage facility requires their approval. So we need the county to weigh in. The second part of it is this is a downhill lot area, and typically we move drainage from lots out to the public street. So often we discourage downhill cul-de-sacs unless there's an alternative plan for drainage. Sometimes the alternative plan of drainage is on-site retention and let it seep into the ground, which some of that may happen at this location. The other opportunity is if they set up the drainage pattern for these lots and filter it, can they discharge into the creek? That's all county approved system. And so we don't have that. And so we'd like to, from a staff level, we think, yes, move forward with the small subdivision, it qualifies for it, but hold off the approval of the subdivision until we get particularly drainage managed and some of the utilities. We can't comment on that. One, it hasn't gone to the county from our perspective. We haven't received feedback from the county. And two, we don't have a set of construction drawings. Are they going to do some on-site retention before they discharge? Can they discharge? And we need to see a grading plan as a part of that for these lots. And that's not been submitted to us. And so we're requesting that you consider approval of the small subdivision waiver, but you table action on the actual subdivision, and there's a laundry list I've put in to the report that we need to be answered so we can come back to you with the affirmative of whether utility services and infrastructure are feasible. And so our recommendation is approve the small subdivision waiver, table the actual subdivision.
Thank you, Corey. Questions for staff?
That was, I think you clarified the question that I had. I was just looking at the plat map with that shading. Is that the flood, not the stem, but the other shading, that part?
Yeah, that's the drainage channel area.
That's the area that
we have unknown conclusions so far.
And that's the uneasiness that I felt when I saw it as well, so thank you.
It was difficult to see in the staff report exactly where the properties lie. This is easier to see, so the stem does not, typically with the flag lot, you see the stem sort of connecting in at the same location for each lot. This one looks like it has a turn in. Is that?
Yeah, you have a lot that connects right here on the north side of the stem.
So you got a stem connecting to a stem, kind of.
Yeah, the issue that we're looking at is that this stem is still drawn part of the front lot. So we're saying you need to readdress that in the access to it. The other thing that I didn't point out verbally, but I talk about in the staff report, is we still need the fire district to weigh in whether, because there's some thought patterns even right now at the fire district that they would stage on the street and run their lines in because it looks like potentially the homes are close enough to the street. But that hasn't been resolved because it's based on location of hydrants. Mm-hmm. And so there may be where they need to have an additional hydrant out on the street. And if that's not a location, then they'd have to do an internal hydrant. And if they do an internal hydrant, which is not sure right now, it looks like it may not be required. But if they do an internal hydrant where the engines have to go down the stem road gets bigger and the turnaround has to be installed. So we're still waiting back from the fire district to weigh in on that matter.
Okay, thank you, Corey.
So when you said the stem is associated with the flag, it needs to be associated with the flag, would there be even if you took the stem out of that front lot, how small would that lot then become? Would that be,
It meets the minimum of 60-foot frontage, so
Okay.
you're okay there. The overall density would still maintain. The issue the staff raises in this report is given the setbacks that would have to occur, does the area, which is called the build area, meet the 2,000 square feet?
right?
Probably, but
Okay.
I'm not going to say that until we redraw the lines and get the calculations.
And that would be associated with the one that you were saying to just table that
Yeah.
and wait until,
Subdivision.
okay.
Other questions?
This is an administrative decision. Is this something that ends with the planning commission? Lisa, do you know?
Yes, it is.
Then this is a separate question. Lisa, I did something that you would probably not like, and I had some people call me about this, and I made comment in return, and errantly said that I thought that this would go up a recommendation to the city council. What would you counsel me to do in that circumstance?
Learn your lesson.
Learn.
No, I mean, and this is another thing why it's important for people to come to the meeting or read the reports, so that everybody gets the same information. But, yes, this is just a matter for the planning commission, so you can either, probably the best thing would be for staff just to notify them and say it's not going up
Okay.
to the council. Hopefully they're here
Yeah,
tonight.
if you have a contact, we can,
Okay. I'll ask the contact. Thanks.
if you have a contact, you tell it to.
Yeah, I'll have my people talk to your people.
Other questions for staff? The applicant is here. We'd invite the applicant to come forward and comment on the staff report or any other, anything else you'd like to comment on, and also answer questions from the commission.
Yeah, I'm Jake Williams, and so I currently have the property under contract to purchase, and have started this process. So as far as some of the things that Corey went over, initially we really wanted to get public feedback and make sure before we got too far into the expensive engineering stuff, we wanted to make sure we got all the comments addressed so that we could really go at it at one time. And because I knew it was a subjective process, we wanted you guys to see it and be able to give your comment early on and feel like we're addressing what you guys would like to see, which is why we're missing some of the details. But we have started working on water retention plan. It looks like from the initial numbers that we'll be able to even retain all the water on site and take it into the ground. And then as far as like the missing, the front lot does meet the square footages and the setbacks. And I have actually discussed this with the fire marshal, and they have approved, as long as it's under 150 feet, they've approved no turnaround. And so they would still stage at the end of the lane, but as long as it's under 150 feet, they're okay with that. And I can get a signature from them. I had a signature on a different plan, but I can get that one for the next meeting as well. So any questions that you have, we really just wanted to kind of get your feedback, particularly on the retention, so we could really have our engineers design it the way that you would like to see it for the next meeting, and then initially get an approval where we felt like, hey, you're supportive of the flag lot, it fit with what you would want to see in it, and then we would move forward and get really into the details and the construction documents for the next meeting.
Thank you. Questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
This matter has been scheduled for a public hearing. We'll now open the public hearing. If there's anyone here that would like to speak on this issue, please come forward to either microphone, introduce yourself for the record, and let us hear your comments.
My name is Karen Buys. I reside at 351 South, 300 East, which is, that white car is parked in my driveway. So I live across Dual Creek to the west from this property. These are my neighbors and good friends. I have questions, and some of them are, and I don't know all the legal speak to propose those questions or state them, but there are some concerns that I have. First of all, the runoff, which has been addressed. In the flood of 1983, my property was impacted as well as the one to the south of me, and would not want any runoff condition to make that happen in in a wet year. We've had dry years, we're going to get some wet ones again. Also, I don't know how you're going to have, since it goes downhill, I don't know how you're going to stop runoff that's going down 4th East from turning down and adding even more runoff water into that property. And I don't know if the retention pond is taking that additional water in, because it will flow west, it's downhill. And along with that, how are you going to get the sewer then to run uphill against gravity? What is your plan for that? Are you going to bring fill dirt in, which would require retaining walls to not go into Dual Creek? Are you going to bring fill dirt, say 4 feet of fill dirt, but then still get the building height that the zoning allows? And so in the back of my property now, I have these 2 huge, huge homes. That's another question I have. I lost my train of thought. But those are some of the general questions that I have, and I would hope that, and I don't know this, I have a question, does a developer have to prove that they have enough financial backing to finish the project and to not get involved in the project and then have all these other obstacles come up and go, whoa, we're out of money, I guess we'll have to stop? Those are some things that I should probably educate myself on, because that is a concern of mine, because I do see some potential issues coming from this, just because of the lay of the land. It's downhill from 4th East. How do you fight gravity and get the sewer to go up to 4th East? And a few of those things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to comment? Thank you. No one else coming forward. I'll close the public hearing at this time, but would invite the applicant to come back up and respond to some of the questions that have been raised. Or to all of the questions that have been raised, if you have the answers.
Is it okay if I bring, this is our engineer?
Yes, please introduce yourself for the record, sir.
Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Weber. I'm the civil engineer working on the project. So I've done some initial studies, and to answer some of your concerns, I've ran calculations for a 100-year storm and feel fairly comfortable with the given opportunities that we can store that amount of water on site by using low impact development standards to ensure that no runoff enters the creek as opposed to what's entering it right now. And then he already answered kind of the fire access concerns, and I think, you know, there's enough room with that stem that we can make that happen too, with radiuses and the widths that we need to have. And then another question there.
Yeah, I was just going to add, on the drawing that we have, the 20 feet isn't actually the floodplain, because when we met with the city, it's not in the floodplain any longer. That's just an easement that the county requires to maintain access to the creek. And then as a part of what he would also be drawing up, Corey had requested that we also, or I think it was the Public Utilities Director, had requested that we address what the current capacity of the creek is, and as a part of the development, if it doesn't meet the capacity from what's already coming upstream, we would have to improve that as well, as a part of the drawings that we would be preparing. And then I have spoken with the county, and we can put water in a controlled way to the creek, but we're trying to avoid that for that reason. We'd like to not impact it as much as we can. So we feel like we're working towards that as an answer. And then as far as the sewer goes, that is something that we know about and we're kind of working with. The county allows you to actually pump the sewer up, but it looks like it'll be, we're conscientious of the heights, and we would definitely keep everything under what the required heights are according to the zoning, and wouldn't be asking for any variances or anything like that. We'd make our plan work to maintain what the zoning requires as far as height.
So for fill dirt and a wall, would you be doing that? She asked about that.
It may be necessary depending on the grades, but again, that would be a minimal wall. We try to minimize those types of things for cost and various other reasons. So
What would
you know,
minimal mean? What would that mean?
there may be up to 4-foot walls in certain areas, but like I said, we try to minimize that, and that'd be the worst case scenario in my opinion.
Okay.
So, I mean, we'll have to do some further studies on that, and kind of, as we develop our construction documents, we'll have better answers. And as I said, that's always the thing that we try to minimize, so.
Let me answer a couple of it, and then they can add in as they see fit to have the last say, because they should have the last say. The drainage issue, just for the clarification, since the '83, the county invested, it was over $8 million in a debris basin up in the Dual Creek area to handle the debris flow that would have come from the canyon. That doesn't necessarily eliminate all the water flow that comes out. So the engineer's statement is correct. We'll be looking, our city engineer will be looking at the plans for the 100-year flood along with the county and trying to determine if there is sufficient area to handle that, as well as any runoff that they add to that from actually developing the lot. So all those calculations will be in those construction plans, and we'll know whether they can retain it all and then control that flow out, or whether it's going to be some other. Right now, their statement is to contain it all and then discharge it appropriately as capacity of the channel opens up. And so I think we can get there from an engineering standpoint if the numbers work out to handle the drainage without creating a negative effect. Our standard is the 100-year flood, so that is very typical. So you'll hear some of those answers, so I encourage people to stay involved so they can hear some of those answers. The issues of grades, there's two measurements that come into the grade. First of all is you look at the average grade of the lot. So we're going to take at the curb and we're going to take back down at the lowest point, and what is that average grade elevation? Once you establish that average grade elevation, you establish a grade around a home, and a home at that point in time is the grade, or the final grade of that home, is measured 6 feet out from the foundation. And so we've got two measurements that we're looking at and how much retaining, but we'll be looking at one at the average grade. So when they retain, they'll be able to retain because the high spot and the low spot give you a medium place. And so as long as the retaining is within proper standards, that becomes the area likely for the home, and 6 feet out from that location is the final grade, and the 35 feet, which is allowed by the zone, is measured from that final grade at all 4 elevations. So when a home sits on a hill, if the front of the house is facing uphill, there's a shorter elevation to the mid-roof point than there is at the rear elevation. And as long as all of those average 35, you meet the zoning. So the simple answer is yes, the home will potentially, if there's some retaining, be measured from the average grade where the retaining wall is to the 35 foot. So whether you consider that really high or not is a matter of preference opinion, but that's how the height is measured.
Well, and just to clarify, just hypothetically, if a plot is really graded, then, like, this is a fairly flat, from what I could tell on Google Earth.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
it's a significant grade. You'd be surprised to see how much change in grade. I mean,
really?
If you think from Main Street to 400 West, there's a 16-foot fall.
Okay.
So that looks flat if you look out. Compared to Fort Canyon, this is a very shallow change in elevation.
Okay.
So we're going to have some elevation change, and we're going to be working from that average grade and the retaining. And then once we hit that final grade, the 35 feet is measured from that point. So
that would kind of ensure a smaller retaining just because of the nature of the land.
Yeah.
Land, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sure there would be the issue of pumping sewer and everything they have to work out with the sewer district. And so they'll be looking at what their average grade is, what they can hit at with the retaining, and whether that can actually flow out to the street or have to pump. Those are all part of the construction drawings, and we'll have better answers for that. And so, but, if you're looking at 1-story versus 2 stories house, expect the possibility of a 2-story house from the average final grade. So that could be imposing to some people from their point of view, but would still meet the zoning requirements. The last one is the financial. All developments required to bond for the improvements to make the lots functional and ready to build on. They have 2 ways of approaching that. They can build it first and then record the plat, or they can bond for those improvements and record the plat. So either way, the finances will come out. They either have to build it, and state law allows them to do it. Does that guarantee that they might get 3/4 into the build and be over their head? No, it does not guarantee. But state law doesn't allow us to interrupt that process. They can build it before they record the plat. If they choose to want to record the plat, then they would bond for those improvements. And the other caveat is you have so long, I think it's 6 months, right, Lisa? 6 months to record the plat. So they would either have to build it all in the 6 months and then record the plat, or if they're building with it and it comes to expiration, they can bond for the remaining improvements to finish it out. So there is a financial watch to try to make sure that things get built. Is it 100% guarantee? No, and state law doesn't let us require 100% to guarantee.
Thank you, Corey. Comments to anything that Corey
I
has
just had a question
said?
on as far as the grade goes, it's on a per lot basis, right? Not a per development.
Correct.
So really, because as you look at it, it's kind of steeper at the front. So the back 2 lots, just to feel a little bit more comfortable, aren't as sloped. So there wouldn't be as much retaining and grade
And that is true. It's
opportunities
measured
from
on
that.
each final
Each
lot.
lot.
Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
Thank you, that's helpful. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. I just had one comment.
Oh, yes, please.
She was concerned about runoff from 400 East. As part of the development, we would not interrupt the flow line of those existing, of the existing gutters that would collect the rainwater, so that'd go off the table just because, like I said, we're not going to be interrupting that flow. We'll install a drive matrix that will maintain that flow line, so
Okay,
just
thank
to
you.
answer that question.
Thank you. Any further questions by the commissioners of staff on this? Just some thoughts generally that I had as I reviewed this and took a look at our statutes. It does appear that we can move in 2 directions on this. One would be to give the applicant some indication that they meet the minimum requirements for the small subdivision waiver flag lot based on their preliminary plans, and then table until we get additional information before we approve the subdivision. I don't really see a problem in doing that, but it is, I guess it's a little bit of a risk for the developer because there's going to have to be some serious study done before we get to the next stage. Any thoughts or comments?
The only question or thought that I had was, do you know how many flag lots we have in that Dual Creek Historic District?
Since we instituted the new one, I don't believe any, but there may be a couple within it because the city had some for duration, but I don't have corporate knowledge of
the number
the
or
past.
something?
But in the area for the 160-foot separation, we don't have any flag lots.
I don't think it's necessarily a big deal because, obviously this infill and this development could be a benefit to the area. But I was just trying to consider if flag lots and just in general were congruent with that historic district.
That's why I included the 2 parameters of your general plan and your Dual Creek District in the background information. As I looked at it, the Old Town is the ripe area according to our, because it was large lots, small homes, based on town plats of the past where you were using the larger properties to manage some of your own raising of crops and gardens. I mean, the Utah is very famous for platting town plats with self-reliance possibilities on them. So for me, the old town area is ripe for the flag lot opportunities. The question will be the spacing of all those opportunities. We have some restrictions there. And so I do think that part of the flag lot ordinance did understand that the old town plat area had it. I think the issue that I raised in the past is that this area used to be zoned R2 for two-family and duplexes. So, and up until 2003, this was a duplex zone. The old town area was. And it was the idea of downzoning that old town area from the duplex zone back to a single family, which was the desire of the community, not only in the general plan, but implemented in 2003. And there were some duplexes preserved by right. They had to register their duplexes within a year period after the rezone. And so we have about 12 legal duplexes by right there. But it was to go to single family. And so I felt like the flag lot didn't violate the community's plan because it recognized there was oversized lots in the area. The issue was we wanted to maintain it as single family rather than duplex. And so given it's an RL zone, ineligible for duplex zoning, I didn't feel it created a conflict with the neighborhood plan as well as the historic district plan.
Thank you.
But that was my opinion. You get to decide.
Any other questions for staff? Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, let me see if I can find the correct recommendation here. Mr. Chair, I hereby make a motion for the Planning Commission to approve the request of a small subdivision waiver flag lot for the project located at 362 South, 400 East, with the following findings A through D in the staff report.
I'll second that. Any further discussion or debate?
And this is the first of the two motions, the second motion that staff recommended we table, just so that was clear.
Yeah, let's make that as a separate motion. So.
Correct. I just wanted to make sure that was understood.
Okay. Let's go ahead and vote. Commissioner Wright?
Aye.
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 Do you want to make the second motion? Since you've got it up.
Might as well. I hereby make a motion for the Planning Commission to table action for the approval of the subdivision as submitted for the project located at 362 South, 400 East with the following directives to be completed or submitted for further consideration by the Planning Commission. And those items are number 1 through 6 as shown in the staff report.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Further debate or discussion?
Those were all the ones we needed that you would recommend, right?
Well,
Corey?
let me,
You can add as you see fit.
I read through these a little while ago, and then as the conversation, I should have been reading through these again. Is one of these conditions the issue of the sewer? I think, do we need to get final approval from the sewer district on how that's going to work?
Yeah, they have to submit their construction drawings to the sewer district and return comment to the city engineer.
Okay. Can we
So
add
if,
that?
if that's not in there explicitly and you'd like to, you can add it.
Can we add that as number 7?
What was that, number 5? Well, number 5 sort of talks about subdivision construction plans submitted by the city engineer.
They're not gonna be able to do it without the approval. I mean, I don't know that we need to specifically,
Okay, well, that's fine. I was just making sure that it's covered by one of
Yeah.
those. That's
Yeah,
why I was saying I'm trying to
it
read through them real
will-
fast.
It will be default looked at in the construction plan review process, but if you desire to be on record that you want that, feel free to add
Put it in.
It'd make me feel better if we put it in as number 7. Can we do that?
I'll second that amendment.
Thank you.
I like it.
Okay. So, do you have some specific language on that, Commissioner? I'd like to read?
I guess number 7 would just be
review and approval by the sewer district.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Here we have an amendment. It's been seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Should be to add item 7.
Since we're talking about that type of thing, I guess I am a little curious if there's an option we could have to see, as the, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but.
Karen.
Yes, as she stated, the retaining, if there's, I mean, is that something that we can, I mean, I can see the
I'd be
concern
interested
there.
in that language as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you would, if you add that to a condition, my advice would be is that you add it in a form that if the option for retaining is going to be present with the constructionist development, they show you those profiles. If there's no need to do the retaining.
That, right, then they obviously don't need to show
Obviously
us
don't have to do
anything. Yeah.
I second that amendment
All right.
with that language.
We have we actually have 2 amendments before us that have been seconded. Any further comment on either one of them? Let's do the second amendment first. The option for retaining and showing of profiles. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The next amendment, the approval, the required approval by the sewer district of any, of the sewer plans. Any further discussion on that? All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we go back to the original motion with the 2 amendments in place, adding conditions 7 and 8 as discussed. Any further discussion on the main motion? If not, let's do a roll call vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
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 So that matter is tabled with the conditions as stated. You probably will want to check with the city once those amendments are put in place so that you have a complete list of the conditions before we move forward with this again. Okay? Very good. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Community Development Director's Report. Mr. Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your next meeting is more than 1 and 2 items. There's actually 3 other items that have been submitted.
Oh, lovely.
So I think,
And I've got one to add.
yeah. So we potentially have a decent agenda for the 11th.
We're going to
but
pull an all-nighter.
in addition to your decent agenda for the 11th, I did get email returned from Darren Fistrup of UDOT and from Scott Hess, who has taken over for Greg Scott. So 2 different Scotts, a Greg Scott versus Scott Hess, who is also now in charge of the Complete Streets program. So we've invited them. I've given them some background information. I've tried to keep the chair in the loop of communication. He's probably getting tired of everything coming from
It's been great.
Mr. Snyder. But we've worked out an idea where they will make a short presentation having their skill set and rendering how they look at the plan. It's fairly broad for them to take. One of the things I tried to do in the communications is say, we're not trying to get UDOT and Wasatch Front to fight with each other, because there's certainly people from a complete street standpoint that don't agree with engineers, and there's engineers that don't agree with planners. So we know we have that potential set up, but I tried to communicate that it's not really about those 2 against each other. It's about, as a Complete Streets program, what are you trying to look at and encourage? What is your view from Wasatch Front Regional Council? And same with UDOT. As you deal with Complete Streets and you see this specific plan, is there the do's and the don'ts? I think Chair Hershey gave me the language I repeated. What are the cans and can'ts and the do's and the don'ts and the wishes and wants? In it. So they would make short presentations looking at our current plan as well as the proposed amendments. And I did my best to give them some backup, 6 megabytes of PDF files to study. And so they want to do it. We're trying to get you dinner. and so that you can get something to eat at 5:30. And Chair Hershey suggested we start at 5:30 so we don't run out of time.
Yeah, and I would anticipate, 15 to 20 minutes in each of those presentations, leaving us a good hour to debate and ask
And will
questions.
they'll be there for questions?
And they'll be there for
That's-
questions.
Yeah, that's what I
They're
wanted
planning
to.
on staying the whole
Yeah.
time. Okay.
So that was good. That was exciting.
Yeah.
People
Very good.
taking their time to come in a
Thank
specific
you. That
area.
is
So
nice.
That
Thank
is
you for
very good.
setting that up.
That was great.
I was ready to offer him movie theater tickets like we did with the ADUs, but they didn't ask it, so I'm not giving them.
Now this is on record. They're going to watch our little movie and know.
But, so that's on board, and then you have some items that would come forward. And there's the continued discussion of the public space plan for wherever you land after the work session.
Right. And actually, I guess that should be added as an agenda item.
Yeah.
We won't reopen the hearing.
But you want to at least say where is the commission
Yeah,
at this
I
point?
would like to have an opportunity for the commission to discuss things that were raised in the work session during that meeting. We won't take a lot of time because we've got some other things on the agenda, but I think while it's fresh on our mind, because as you all saw from the minutes from the city council, they want a recommendation
Right.
from us in May. I assume
And
that
I've got
means-
them reported to the city manager that it wouldn't likely come at least until June.
Good.
And I'm not trying to hustle you along either. I just said your May expectation, planning commission's not on that track, so.
Yeah, well, I think we need some more input from the public, especially after we understand where Wasatch Front is and where UDOT is. And hopefully we'll have some people attending that work session who can hear part of that. But in any event, I think it will be a struggle to get a firm recommendation to the city presented in May.
Yes, and they didn't push back at the meeting. Lisa was there. I think it was late, so both of us were catching cat naps. No, we weren't. But we did, and I did tell the city manager that a May timeframe was not feasible.
Okay.
So we got him to let him know it probably wouldn't come until June timeframe.
And what else have you got on the agenda? You've got those.
I don't remember the applications that came in. I think we have a CUP for the snow shack that was abandoned last year at the old Dick's Market site. And somebody's bought that and didn't realize what they bought, so they're frustrated that it expired because they illegally operated it last year, and I deemed it
Is that the
abandoned.
Rainbow Snow, or is that?
Yeah.
Oh,
So we have a couple of things like that on the agenda. I'm trying to remember what Brandon was preparing.
Okay.
But you do have, I think, 3 other items potentially on the agenda that night.
Still buy them.
Okay. Very good.
And then the other thing just to report is that the rezone at Lund Lane was denied by the city council.
Really?
So just so you're aware, that was a rough night for
Wow.
many subjects, but
Huh.
that was a rough night for a lot of people. Some people really liked it. I don't want to discredit those who thought it was a great decision, but it was a rough night for all involved to take that matter on, but it was turned down.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's why they're elected. Any other good news?
No, you guys are doing a great job. I love working with this commission.
All right. Well, thank you, Corey, for all your good work, and especially for setting up the work session. I think this will be very helpful. I took occasion today to re-review all of the emails that you'd been sending me, and I think that this thing can be brought to a head, and I think we can present something to the council with some reasoning behind it that's going to make some sense. But before we're prepared to do that, I think we do need to hear from UDOT and others. I drive that street almost every day, and I have this vision, and it's a long ways from where the street is right now. So
We just got to keep our vision.
we just got to keep that vision.
That's the purpose of us as
pretend
citizen
it's there.
planners, right? That's what we're supposed to do.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. I'll move to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, I was just going to say
Yes,
too, just in relation to that, I feel like sometimes we don't always take the time to appreciate and thank the people that do so much. And so again, thank you to staff for every time having very well thought out reports and giving us, references and things to consider, and doing a great job, a fabulous job. So thank you
And
very much.
especially since it's Assistance Day today.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
It's Assistance
Dang
Day,
it.
so perfect timing.
Yes.
Thank
Well,
you very much.
Work session, I'll bring something for you.
Well, just so you know, you ought to see Lisa's red lines of my reports before they get published.
Well, she got trained in that, so. Okay, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's
Okay.
Thank you.